In this video, I'd like to help clarify a couple of the questions that I've gotten from students so far on MathXL. As you're working through the recent assignments, you may come across this particular question. This one comes from Chapter 3, Section 3, and it's number 13. Our goal is to graph the linear function by finding x and y intercepts with this particular example. Now, if you were to use the question help option, such as help me solve this or view an example, they'll show you a very similar method, but I'll go ahead and provide my suggestion here. So I've got x minus y equals 6, and I'm just going to jot this down on a separate sheet of paper. X minus y equals 6. And we had mentioned this once in class that if you're looking for an x-intercept, then what you must do is you must set y equal to 0. And if you're looking for a y-intercept, then you set x equal to 0. That's how the coordinates are well defined in this situation. So let's go after the x-intercepts first. We'll show our work there. If we set y equal to 0, then this is going to look like x minus 0 equals 6. And x itself is equal to 6. There is our x-intercept. For our y-intercept, we set x equal to 0. So I'll say x is 0, and we subtract y. Well, that's kind of interesting because if we have 0 minus y equals 6, that's like saying that a negative y is equal to 6. And I could multiply both sides by -1, or I can just simply change the signs at this point. If I change y from a negative to a positive, then that means I have to change 6 from a positive to a negative. We'll just change the signs here. And we've got y equals -6. So now that we've identified our intercepts, we can think about what the graph looks like. To say that x equals 6 and that that's an x-intercept, that means that there is a coordinate somewhere over here at 6 on the x-axis. Remember x and y. And if I had grid lines, I would just count over 6 spaces and I would place a dot. For y equals -6, I would do the same thing. Count down 6 spaces and place a dot. So now I have my x-intercept, I have my y-intercept. And that should be sufficient for graphing a line. I'll cheat just a little bit here with my technology. The line just simply needs to be a straight line that connects those 2 points. And now we are finished. As far as getting that entered into MathXL, it's fairly straightforward, although a bit confusing if you've never utilized an online course like this before. So I'll just zoom out a little bit, and I've already started this once, so I'm actually going to expand this, and what I'll do is I'll just click the item that's on the screen because it's not quite right, and I'll just press delete, and I'll say OK to that. So now it's deleted. So in this toolbox over here, we've got options. One of the options that we have is this button right here. This is going to allow us to create a line based on 2 points. If that's activated, then I should recognize that my first 2 points, or first of 2 points, is here at -6 on the y-axis. And then I can drag up here on screen. I don't have to drag it, but I can just move my mouse, I should say, and click the second button on the screen and locate that point. Now in MathXL, I've got the graph that's drawn, and it matches what I had predicted on paper. So let's see what happens when we check this answer. There we go. So we've got a second component to this question too. It says type the equation using function notation. And we haven't talked about function notation in class yet, although it's something that should have been presented in your Algebra 1 course. But in the event that you've never seen this before, what I would recommend that you do is click on View an Example and let the MathXL guides help you through this particular problem. So I'm just skipping through the steps that involve the graph. This is exactly what I had recommended that you do anyway. MathXL is walking you through the first half of this question right now. And I skipped ahead a little bit farther, and they actually suggested that you plot another coordinate as well. So pick some other x value in between your intercepts and make sure that it lands on the line, which is a good idea, but not always necessary. So what I'm looking at now, though, is where they're at here. They're getting to the point where they're suggesting how to rewrite the equation using function notation. And it says first to solve the linear equation for y. Now we did this in class. This was my suggestion, especially when solving systems of equations. If you rewrite or solve the equation for y, get y by itself, you'll end up with an mx plus b format to the equation, and you'll ultimately end up with an expression that looks like function form that MathXL is asking for. So in their example, they're doing the math necessary to get y by itself. And finally, when we do have y by itself, we simply change y to f of x, this function notation. So in our example here, we're going to go back to the original equation, and that was x minus y equals 6. I'll change color here so that we know that we're working on a different part of the problem. X minus y is equal to 6. So our job is to get y by itself. I think what I would like to do is subtract x from both sides. And that'll move the x from the left to the right. That leaves me with negative y equals negative x plus 6. I'm writing in this order because this will look more like slope-intercept. I could write this as 6 minus x, and that's fine too, but in this form, it looks more like the slope-intercept equation that we're used to. Now, as I said in a previous part of this question, I could just change the sign of y to a positive, but if I change this sign, then I have to change the sign of everything else. This is the result of essentially multiplying by negative 1 on both sides of the equation. So if I multiplied this side of the equation by negative 1, and I multiplied this side of the equation by negative 1, effectively all signs change. And so we're now left with a positive x and a minus 6. So there's our equation in slope-intercept form. As far as function notation goes, we just change y to f of x, and we report the answer as f of x equals x minus 6. So let's check that out. If we go to the screen here, we've got f of x equals, I've now entered x minus 6, and there we go. We've got credit for that particular question. So I hope this video helps. I know that MathXL can be a bit confusing at first, especially when you're new to the format. But again, I want to remind you that this question help tool up here is quite advantageous for students, either using Help Me Solve This or view an example for specific help. Thanks for watching.